The snow came down in thick, blinding sheets that turned the world into a freezing white prison. Simone Harris could barely see 3 feet ahead as she stumbled through the storm, her arms aching from the weight of 2 screaming babies bundled in thin blankets. Her teeth chattered so violently she thought they might break. The twins, 8-month-old Emily and Ethan, wailed against the howling wind, their tiny faces red from cold and terror. Simone's legs gave out. She fell to her knees in the snow, clutching the babies closer to her chest, trying to shield them with her own freezing body. Blood soaked through her torn uniform where she'd scraped herself climbing out of the Caldwell mansion window. Her hands were numb, her feet were numb, everything was numb except the burning panic in her chest. She'd run for over an hour through the storm, away from the house where she'd worked as a maid for 6 months, away from the locked room where she'd found these babies crying in their soiled cribs with no heat, no food, parents nowhere to be found for the 3rd day in a row. She couldn't leave them there. She just couldn't. But now she was lost. The babies were getting colder. She was getting weaker. The storm was getting worse. Through her blurred vision, she saw lights in the distance. A massive house. A mansion. She dragged herself forward, crawling through the snow with the twins pressed against her. Please, she whispered to no one, to God, to anyone who might hear. Please help us. Her vision darkened at the edges. The babies' cries grew weaker. Simone reached the edge of what looked like a driveway and collapsed face-first into the snow, curling her body around the twins in one final attempt to keep them warm. The last thing she heard before everything went black was a man's voice shouting, "Someone's out here. Call 911. Get blankets now. Would you risk everything to save 2 innocent babies? Drop a comment below and let us know what you would do. Don't forget to subscribe for more emotional stories that will touch your heart." Simone woke to warmth. Real warmth, the kind she hadn't felt in months. Her eyes fluttered open to find herself in a massive bed covered in thick comforters. The room around her looked like something from a magazine: high ceilings, elegant furniture, soft lighting from crystal lamps. Panic shot through her. The babies. She tried to sit up, but her body protested. Every muscle screamed. "Easy, easy." A man's voice came from beside the bed. Simone turned her head to see a tall white man in his early 30s sitting in a chair nearby. He had dark hair, kind blue eyes, and wore an expensive-looking sweater and jeans. "The babies are fine. They're sleeping in the next room with a nurse watching them." "Who are you?" Simone's voice came out as a croak. "Christopher Bennett. This is my home. My security guard found you collapsed at my gate about 3 hours ago. You and those babies were minutes from hypothermia." He stood and poured water from a pitcher into a glass. "The doctor just left. He said you'll be okay with rest." Simone tried to process this. "The babies, I need to see them." "Of course." Christopher walked to the door and gestured. A middle-aged woman in scrubs appeared, gently carrying both twins. They were clean, dressed in new pajamas, sleeping peacefully. Tears filled Simone's eyes. "Thank you. Thank you so much. The nurse has been feeding them. They were hungry." Christopher's expression was serious but gentle. "I need to know what happened. Why were you in a snowstorm with 2 infants?" Simone looked at the sleeping babies, then back at Christopher. Something about his face made her feel safe enough to tell the truth. "I worked as a maid for a family across town. The Caldwells. They hired me 6 months ago to help with their house and their twins. But they were never home. They'd leave for days, sometimes a week. The babies were always alone." Her voice broke. 3 days ago, I went to check on them and found them locked in a room with no heat. They were crying so hard. Dirty diapers, empty bottles, freezing cold. I waited for the parents to come home, but they never did. I couldn't just leave them there. I couldn't. Christopher's jaw tightened. "So you took them." "I know it was wrong, but they were going to die. I grabbed them and ran. I didn't know where to go. I don't have family here. I was just trying to get somewhere safe." Simone wiped her eyes. "Are you going to call the police?" "Yes," Christopher said, and Simone's heart sank. "But not to arrest you. To report child neglect. What you described is criminal. Those babies needed someone to protect them, and you did. That makes you a hero, not a criminal. Simone stared at him. You believe me? I have no reason not to. Christopher sat back down. Here's what's going to happen. You and the babies are going to stay here until we figure this out properly. I'll hire a lawyer to help you. We'll contact Child Protective Services and explain everything. But you're not going out in the cold again. You're safe here. I don't have money to pay you. I'm not asking for money. Christopher's voice was firm but kind. I'm offering help. Will you accept it? Simone looked at the babies, then at this stranger who'd already done more for them in 3 hours than their own parents had in weeks. Yes. Thank you. I accept. The next morning, Simone woke to sunlight streaming through enormous windows. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memories flooded back. The storm, the collapse, Christopher Bennett's unexpected kindness. A soft knock came at the door. Come in, Simone called. A young woman entered carrying a tray of food. Good morning, Miss Harris. Mr. Bennett asked me to bring you breakfast. I'm Teresa, the housekeeper. Thank you. Simone sat up slowly, her body still sore. Please, call me Simone. Teresa set the tray on the bed, scrambled eggs, toast, fresh fruit, orange juice, coffee. Mr. Bennett also asked me to show you to the nursery after you eat. He had it set up last night for the babies. He did what? Set up a nursery. He ordered cribs, changing tables, clothes, toys, everything those babies might need. It was all delivered and assembled by midnight. Teresa smiled. He's a good man. Works himself half to death usually, but he has a big heart. After eating, Simone followed Teresa down a hallway to a room that had been transformed overnight. 2 matching white cribs stood against one wall. A changing table, rocking chair, shelves full of diapers, wipes, bottles, and baby supplies filled the space. Toys and stuffed animals lined another shelf. The walls were painted a soft yellow. Emily and Ethan were awake in their cribs, babbling happily. The nurse from last night was feeding Ethan a bottle. They're doing much better, the nurse said. Good appetites, no signs of illness. Very sweet babies. Simone picked up Emily and held her close, breathing in that baby smell. Thank you for taking care of them. My pleasure. Mr. Bennett hired me to stay as long as you need help. The nurse handed her the bottle. You should feed her yourself. Bonding is important. As Simone fed Emily, Christopher appeared in the doorway. Morning. How are you feeling? Sore, but better. Christopher, this is too much. The nursery, the nurse, all these supplies. It's exactly enough. Christopher walked over to peek at Ethan. I called my lawyer this morning. His name is Thomas Richardson. He's coming by this afternoon to talk to you about your options. We'll file a report with Child Services and the police together. I'm scared, Simone admitted. What if they take the babies away from me? What if I get in trouble for taking them? That's why we're doing this the right way. We'll tell the truth. You saved these children's lives. Any reasonable person will see that. Christopher's voice was steady and calm. I won't let anything bad happen to you or them. I promise. Simone believed him. Something about the way he looked at her, the confidence in his voice, made her trust that everything would be okay. Over the next few days, Simone settled into an unexpected routine. She cared for the twins with help from the nurse. She ate meals prepared by Christopher's chef. She wore clothes Teresa had bought for her, proper clothes that fit and weren't worn thin. She slept in a comfortable bed and woke up warm. Christopher checked on them several times a day. He'd sit in the nursery and talk to her while she fed the babies or changed diapers. He asked about her life, her family, her dreams. He told her about his work as an investor and business owner. He was easy to talk to, never condescending, always interested. On the 4th day, Simone asked the question that had been bothering her. Why are you doing all this? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Christopher was quiet for a moment. When I was 10, my mom left my dad and me. She just walked out one day. My dad was a mess, started drinking, stopped caring. I was alone a lot. My teacher, Mrs. Patterson, noticed. She started bringing me lunch every day. She'd check my homework, talk to me, make sure I was okay. She didn't have to do any of that. I asked her once why she bothered. She said, because someone has to. Because you matter. That stuck with me. When I grew up and made money, I promised myself I'd be that person for someone else when I got the chance. You gave me that chance. Simone felt tears prick her eyes. Your teacher sounds like a good person. She was. She died 5 years ago. I named my company after her, Patterson Investments. Christopher looked at the babies. These kids needed someone. You were that someone. Now you need someone. I'm that someone. It's simple. It was simple. And it was the most beautiful thing Simone had ever heard. What would you do if a stranger showed you such kindness? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories of hope and humanity. Thomas Richardson, Christopher's lawyer, was a sharp-dressed black man in his 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. He sat across from Simone in Christopher's study, a notepad in front of him. Tell me everything, Thomas said. Start from when you first started working for the Caldwells. Simone took a deep breath and began. She explained how she'd answered a job posting 6 months ago. The Caldwells, Brian and Jessica, seemed normal at first. They were a young white couple in their late 20s who'd recently had twins. They said they needed help around the house and with the babies. The first month was fine, Simone said. I cleaned, did laundry, helped with feedings. But then they started leaving more. First for a day, then 2 days, then a whole week. They'd say they had business trips, family emergencies, things like that. But they never arranged for anyone else to watch the babies. They just assumed I'd handle it. Did they pay you extra? Thomas asked. No. They barely paid me at all. I was supposed to get $400 a week, but they were always late. Sometimes they'd skip weeks. I stayed because I needed the job and because I was worried about Emily and Ethan. Thomas took notes. Go on. Simone described finding the babies locked in the cold room, the dirty conditions, the empty bottles. Her voice shook as she relived it. I banged on their bedroom door, called their phones, nothing. I waited another few hours, but they didn't come. The babies were getting sicker. I couldn't wait anymore. So you took them and ran in a snowstorm with no plan, Thomas said. I know it sounds crazy. It sounds like you saved their lives. Thomas set down his pen. Here's what we're dealing with. You technically committed kidnapping. But given the circumstances, any prosecutor with sense will see this was a rescue, not a crime. We need to report this immediately to Child Protective Services and cooperate fully. Simone's stomach dropped. Will they take the babies? Temporarily, they'll go into emergency foster care while the situation is investigated. But we'll petition for you to be their foster parent given that you're already caring for them and they're bonded to you. What if the Caldwells fight it? Let them try. They abandoned their children. We have evidence, your testimony, medical reports showing the babies were malnourished and neglected, their own absence. They'll likely lose parental rights. Thomas looked at Christopher. You're willing to support this financially? Legal fees, court costs, everything? Whatever it takes, Christopher said without hesitation. Thomas nodded. Then we have a strong case. Simone, I need you to write down everything you remember. Dates, times, specific incidents. Be as detailed as possible. We're going to build an airtight case. Over the next several hours, Simone wrote page after page. Christopher sat with her the whole time, bringing her tea, encouraging her, promising everything would work out. That night, after the babies were asleep, Christopher found Simone sitting in the living room staring at the fireplace. You okay? He asked, sitting beside her. I keep thinking about what happens if I lose them. I know I'm not their biological mother, but I love them. I've been taking care of them since they were 2 months old. They're mine in every way that matters. You won't lose them. Christopher's voice was certain. I meant what I said. I'll do everything in my power to make sure you get to keep them. Why? Why do you care so much? Christopher looked at the fire. Because what you did was right. Because those babies deserve someone who loves them. Because you deserve help. Because I can provide it. Does there need to be another reason? Simone met his eyes. Most people would have called the police and washed their hands of it. I'm not most people. Christopher smiled slightly. And neither are you. That's what makes this work. Simone felt something shift inside her chest. Gratitude, yes. But something else too. Something warmer and more complicated that she wasn't ready to name yet. The meeting with Child Protective Services happened 2 days later in Christopher's study. A social worker named Patricia Coleman arrived, a black woman in her 40s with a serious expression but kind eyes. Miss Harris, Patricia said, I've read your statement and the medical reports. I need to hear the story in your own words. Simone went through everything again, her voice steadier this time. Christopher sat beside her, and Thomas sat on her other side. Having them there gave her courage. Patricia asked detailed questions. How often were the Caldwells gone? What condition were the babies in when she found them? Why didn't she call the police immediately? Simone answered honestly. I know I should have called someone sooner, Simone said. But I was scared I'd lose my job. I was scared they'd blame me somehow. I kept thinking maybe they'd come back and be better. I was wrong. I should have acted sooner. You acted when it mattered most, Patricia said. You saved those babies from a life-threatening situation. That takes courage. Patricia examined the twins, who were healthy and happy now. She checked the nursery, noted the supplies, observed how the babies responded to Simone. The babies are clearly bonded to you, Patricia said. They're healthy, well-fed, clean, and content. You're providing excellent care. What happens now? Simone asked. I'm opening an investigation into the Caldwell family. We'll track them down and interview them. In the meantime, I'm granting you emergency temporary custody of Emily and Ethan. They'll stay here with you. Patricia handed her papers. You'll need to complete foster parent training and certification, but given the circumstances, we're expediting the process. Relief flooded through Simone. They can stay. They can stay. We'll have follow-up visits to ensure everything remains stable, but as long as the babies are safe and healthy, they'll remain in your care. Patricia looked at Christopher. Mr. Bennett, you're providing housing and support. For as long as needed, Christopher confirmed. Good. This is the best possible scenario for these children. Patricia stood. Miss Harris, you did the right thing. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you saved 2 lives. Don't forget that. After Patricia left, Simone burst into tears. Christopher pulled her into a hug, and she let herself cry against his shoulder. It's okay, he murmured. You did it. They're safe. You're safe. I was so scared. I know. But you were brave. You trusted the process. You trusted me. And it worked out. Simone pulled back and looked at him. I don't know how to thank you. You've given us everything. A home, safety, legal help, hope. How do I ever repay that? You don't repay kindness. You just accept it and maybe pass it on someday. Christopher smiled. Besides, having you and the babies here has been good for me. This house has been empty for too long. It's nice to have life in it again. That evening, Thomas called with an update. We found the Caldwells. They're in Florida. They claimed they left the babies with you as their nanny and had no idea anything was wrong. That's a lie, Simone said. Of course it is. And we'll prove it. They never paid you properly, never provided adequate supplies, never checked in. They can claim they hired you to babysit all they want, but the evidence shows neglect. Child Services is building a case for termination of parental rights. How long will that take? Months, maybe a year. But you're in a good position. You have custody, you're providing excellent care, and you have resources backing you. Thomas paused. Christopher is spending a lot of money on this case. He must really believe in you. After hanging up, Simone found Christopher in his office working on his laptop. Thomas says you're spending a lot on this case, she said. Christopher looked up. Is that a problem? I feel guilty. This is your money. Your time. Your home. I'm taking so much from you. Simone, I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. What's the point of having it if I can't use it to help people who need it? Christopher closed his laptop. You're not taking anything from me. You're giving me purpose. You're letting me be the person I want to be. If anything, I should thank you. Simone didn't know what to say to that. So instead, she said, the babies and I are lucky you found us. I'm the lucky one, Christopher said softly. Trust me on that. Weeks turned into months. Winter melted into spring. The court case against the Caldwells moved slowly forward, but Simone's life transformed in ways she'd never imagined. She completed her foster parent certification. Patricia Coleman visited monthly and always praised the care Simone provided. Emily and Ethan thrived. They started crawling, then pulling themselves up on furniture. Their laughter filled Christopher's mansion with joy. Simone found herself settling into a routine that felt more like a life than temporary shelter. She woke early with the babies, fed them breakfast, played with them in the nursery or the massive backyard. Teresa became a friend, teaching Simone to cook fancy meals and sharing gossip about Christopher's business partners. The nurse, Helen, showed Simone infant development techniques and assured her she was a natural mother. Christopher was around more than Simone expected. He worked from home often, taking calls in his office but emerging frequently to check on them. He started joining them for meals. He'd sit on the floor and play with the twins, making them giggle with silly voices and peekaboo games. One evening, Simone found him in the nursery rocking Ethan to sleep. Emily was already down in her crib. Christopher hummed softly, his eyes closed, looking peaceful. You're good at that, Simone said quietly from the doorway. Christopher opened his eyes and smiled. He's a sweet kid. They both are. You don't have to do this, you know. The night routine. I can handle it. I know you can. I want to. Christopher stood carefully and laid Ethan in his crib. Can we talk? They went to the living room. Spring rain pattered against the windows. Simone, I need to tell you something, Christopher said. Having you and the babies here, it's changed everything for me. I was lonely before. I didn't even realize how lonely until you showed up. This house feels like a home now. Simone's heart beat faster. It feels like home to me too. I want you to stay. Not just until the custody case is settled. Permanently. This can be your home, the baby's home, for as long as you want. Christopher, I can't live off your charity forever. It's not charity. Christopher moved closer. Let me help you another way. I'll pay for you to go to school. You mentioned wanting to become a nurse. Do it. Study, get your degree. I'll cover everything, tuition, books, childcare while you're in class. Build the life you want. Simone felt tears threatening. Why would you do that? Because you deserve it. Because you're smart and capable and brave. Because I believe in you. Christopher's voice was soft. Because I care about you. A lot. The air between them felt electric. Simone realized she'd been feeling this way for weeks but hadn't let herself acknowledge it. She cared about Christopher too. More than cared. She was falling for him. I care about you too, she admitted. Christopher smiled, a real smile that lit up his whole face. Yeah. Simone laughed nervously. This is complicated. It doesn't have to be. We're two people who like each other. We're living in the same house. We're raising babies together, basically. Maybe that's not complicated. Maybe that's just right. What if I mess this up? What if I'm not good enough for this life? Christopher took her hands. You saved 2 babies from dying. You escaped into a snowstorm with nothing but courage. You've fought through legal procedures and fear and uncertainty. You're raising 2 kids alone while dealing with trauma. Simone, you're stronger than anyone I've ever met. You're more than good enough. Simone felt something break open inside her chest, something that had been locked and protected for so long. She'd spent her whole life feeling like she wasn't enough, wasn't worthy, wasn't deserving. But looking at Christopher, seeing the honesty in his eyes, she started to believe maybe she was. Okay, she said. I'll stay. I'll go to nursing school. I'll build a life here. With you. Christopher pulled her into a hug, and Simone let herself relax into it. For the first time since she could remember, she felt safe. Not just physically safe, but emotionally safe. Safe to hope, to dream, to love. Summer arrived warm and bright. Simone started nursing school at the local community college. Christopher hired a full-time nanny to watch Emily and Ethan during her classes, but Simone was home every afternoon and evening. She studied while the babies napped and late at night after they were asleep. Christopher supported her in every way possible. He quizzed her on anatomy terms. He brought her coffee while she studied. He celebrated when she aced her first exam. Their relationship deepened naturally. They had dinner together every night, talking about their days. They took the twins to the park on weekends. They watched movies after the babies went to bed, sitting closer each time until one night Christopher kissed her. It was gentle and sweet and felt like coming home. Simone kissed him back, and when they pulled apart, both were smiling. "I've wanted to do that for weeks," Christopher admitted. "Me too," Simone said. They took things slowly, both aware of the complications. The custody case was still ongoing. Simone was still technically dependent on Christopher's help. They didn't want to rush or mess things up. But it was hard not to fall deeper every day. Christopher was thoughtful and patient. He listened when Simone talked about her fears. He encouraged her dreams. He was wonderful with the twins, treating them like they were his own children. Then, in late July, Thomas called with serious news. "The Caldwells are fighting back. They've hired a lawyer and are claiming you kidnapped their children. They're demanding custody be returned to them." Simone felt sick. Can they do that? They can try. But they have a weak case. The evidence of neglect is overwhelming. Still, we need to prepare for a court hearing. Patricia will testify about the condition the babies were in when she first saw them. The doctor who examined them will testify. You'll testify. It'll be intense, but we'll win. The hearing was scheduled for September. Simone spent the next weeks anxious and afraid. Christopher stayed close, reminding her constantly that everything would be okay. The day of the hearing arrived. Simone wore a simple blue dress that Teresa had helped her pick out. Christopher wore a suit and held her hand as they walked into the courthouse. The Caldwells were there: Brian, tall and blonde, wearing an expensive suit; Jessica, thin and blonde, wearing pearls and a designer dress. They looked perfect and polished. They looked like the kind of people who deserved to have babies. Simone felt small beside them. Thomas leaned close. "Don't let them intimidate you. You saved those babies. Remember that." The hearing began. The Caldwells' lawyer painted them as loving parents who'd made a mistake trusting the wrong nanny. He claimed Simone had stolen their children and manipulated the situation. Then Thomas presented his case. Patricia testified about the neglect she'd documented. The doctor testified about the baby's malnourishment and poor health when first examined. Simone testified about finding them locked in a cold room, dirty and crying. "Miss Harris," the judge asked, "why didn't you call the authorities immediately?" "I was scared," Simone said honestly. "I was scared I'd lose my job. I was scared they'd find a way to blame me. But then I realized none of that mattered as much as those babies' lives. So I took them and ran. I'd do it again." The judge studied her. "You understand you violated the law?" "Yes, but I'd rather have broken the law than let those babies die." The courtroom was silent. Then the judge turned to the Caldwells. "Mr. and Mrs. Caldwell, you left your infant children alone, repeatedly, 4 days at a time. You failed to provide adequate food, clothing, shelter, or medical care. You demonstrated a pattern of neglect that put your children's lives at risk. This court finds clear and convincing evidence of parental unfitness." Jessica Caldwell started crying. Brian looked angry. "Parental rights are terminated," the judge said. "The children will remain in Miss Harris's custody. Adoption proceedings may begin immediately should she wish to pursue them." The gavel came down. It was over. Simone couldn't breathe. Thomas hugged her. Christopher hugged her. She'd won. The babies were hers. Outside the courthouse, the Caldwells' lawyer approached them. "My clients want to speak with Miss Harris." "Absolutely not," Thomas said. But Simone nodded. It's okay. I'll listen. Jessica approached, mascara running down her face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We weren't ready to be parents. We didn't know what we were doing. But we never wanted to hurt them. You did hurt them, Simone said quietly. You left them alone. They could have died. I know. I know. Jessica wiped her eyes. Thank you for saving them. Thank you for loving them. They're better off with you. Brian said nothing, just took his wife's hand and led her away. Christopher wrapped his arm around Simone. Let's go home. Home. Yes. That's exactly what it was. Have you ever had to fight for what was right, even when it was scary? Drop a comment sharing your story, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring journeys of courage and love. The months following the hearing were the happiest of Simone's life. With the custody battle won, she could breathe freely for the first time in a year. Emily and Ethan were legally hers, at least temporarily, while adoption procedures moved forward. She threw herself into nursing school with new energy. Her professors praised her dedication and skill. She made friends with other students, built a life beyond Christopher's mansion, though she always looked forward to coming home. Christopher's business continued to thrive, but he made time for family dinners, weekend outings, bedtime routines. He'd become as much a parent to the twins as Simone was. They called him Kiki because they couldn't pronounce Christopher, and it melted his heart every time. One October evening, after the twins were asleep, Christopher asked Simone to join him in the garden. The air was crisp and cool, leaves turning gold and red on the trees. I have something to tell you, Christopher said. They sat on a bench near the fountain. Do you remember when you first came here? How scared you were. How you thought you didn't deserve help. I remember. I need you to know something. You've changed my life in ways I never expected. Before you came, I was successful but empty. I had money and business achievements, but no purpose. No real joy. Christopher took her hands. You brought joy back into my life. You, Emily, and Ethan. You're my family now. And I don't want that to ever change. Simone's heart raced. Christopher. Let me finish. He smiled. I love you, Simone. I'm completely in love with you. I love your strength, your kindness, your determination. I love how you are with the babies. I love talking to you, laughing with you, building a life with you. I want to keep doing that forever. He pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it. Inside was a simple but beautiful diamond ring. Will you marry me? Simone felt tears streaming down her face. A year ago, she'd been alone, poor, desperate, running through a snowstorm with 2 babies and no hope. Now she was here, loved, supported, safe, with a man who saw all of her and wanted forever. Yes, she said, her voice breaking. Yes, I'll marry you. Christopher slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her. It was soft and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, both were crying happy tears. I want to adopt the twins with you, Christopher said. I want us to be a family officially. In every way. Really? You want that? I've wanted it for months. Emily and Ethan are my kids. You're going to be my wife. Let's make it all official. Simone laughed and cried and kissed him again. Yes. Yes to everything. They called Thomas the next day. He began the paperwork for Christopher to adopt the twins alongside Simone. The process would take months, but they had time. They had a lifetime. Simone told Teresa, who cried and hugged her and immediately started planning a wedding. Helen, the nanny, congratulated them and offered to watch the twins during the honeymoon. Patricia Coleman, who still visited monthly, smiled broadly when she heard the news. You've built something beautiful here, Patricia said. Those babies are lucky to have you both. We're the lucky ones, Simone replied. As fall turned to winter, Simone continued school. She was top of her class, on track to graduate in the spring. She studied pediatric nursing, wanting to work with children like Emily and Ethan who needed advocates. Christopher planned their wedding for February, a small ceremony in his garden with close friends and family. Simone had no family to invite, but Christopher's parents flew in from California, and they embraced her warmly. Our son talks about you constantly, Christopher's mother said. He's never been this happy. Thank you for loving him. Thank you for raising him to be the kind of man who stops to help strangers in snowstorms, Simone replied. Emily and Ethan grew bigger and more active. They learned to walk, then to run. They spoke in simple sentences. They called Simone Mama and Christopher Dada, and every time they did, Simone felt her heart might burst from happiness. On Christmas morning, they opened presents in the living room. The twins tore through wrapping paper with glee. Christopher gave Simone a necklace with 2 small charms, an E for Emily and an E for Ethan. So you always remember the night you saved them, he said. Simone gave Christopher a framed photo of the 4 of them from Halloween when they dressed as characters from a children's book. So you always remember when we became a family. It was perfect. All of it was perfect in a way Simone had never dreamed possible. February arrived cold but beautiful. Snow covered the ground in soft white blankets, but this time snow meant beauty, not terror. This time Simone was warm and safe and loved. Their wedding day was simple and intimate. Teresa and Helen helped Simone get ready. She wore a cream-colored dress, simple and elegant. Her hair was styled in soft curls. She looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back, confident, happy, glowing. You're beautiful, Teresa said, adjusting Simone's veil. I'm terrified, Simone admitted. What if I'm not good at being married? What if I mess this up? Honey, you've been practically married for a year already. This is just making it official. Helen smiled. Christopher adores you. Those babies adore you. You've already built the life. Now you're just celebrating it. The ceremony took place in Christopher's garden, under an arch decorated with white flowers. Emily and Ethan, dressed in matching outfits, sat in the front row with Helen. About 30 guests attended, Christopher's business associates, Teresa and her family, Patricia Coleman, Thomas Richardson, and a few of Simone's nursing school friends. Christopher stood at the altar in a dark suit, looking handsome and nervous. When Simone walked down the aisle, his face lit up like sunrise. They exchanged vows. Simone's voice shook, but she meant every word. Christopher, you saved my life. You gave me hope when I had none. You loved me when I didn't believe I deserved love. You've been my partner, my friend, my family. I promise to love you with everything I have for the rest of my life. Christopher's eyes were wet. Simone, you're the strongest person I've ever known. You taught me what it means to be brave. You brought joy and purpose into my life. You gave me a family. I promise to support your dreams, protect our family, and love you more every single day. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife. Christopher kissed Simone, and everyone cheered. Emily and Ethan clapped their tiny hands, not understanding but happy because the adults were happy. The reception was held inside the mansion. They ate dinner, cut a small cake, danced to soft music. Christopher held Simone close and whispered, "Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for finding me in that snowstorm," Simone whispered back. A week after the wedding, they returned to court for the adoption finalization hearing. The judge reviewed their paperwork, noted their marriage, observed how Emily and Ethan clung to both Simone and Christopher. It's clear these children are well loved and well cared for, the judge said. Adoption is granted. Emily Grace Bennett and Ethan James Bennett are now legally your children. Congratulations. Simone sobbed. Christopher held her. The twins looked confused until Simone picked them up and held them tight. You're ours, she whispered to them. Forever. You're ours. That night, they celebrated quietly at home. The twins played with their toys while Simone and Christopher sat on the couch, arms around each other. We did it, Simone said. We actually did it. You did it. You saved them. Everything else just fell into place. No, we did it together. Simone looked at her husband, her children, her home. I never believed I could have this. A family. A real family. You deserve it. You've always deserved it. Christopher kissed her forehead. And this is just the beginning. We're going to have an incredible life together. Simone believed him. She believed in the life they were building, in the love they shared, in the family they'd created from desperation and hope. She thought back to that night in the snowstorm, how terrified she'd been, how hopeless everything had seemed. She'd thought she was running toward nothing, just away from danger. But she'd been running toward everything: love, family, home, a future brighter than any dream. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. Sometimes falling in the snow means someone extraordinary will pick you up. Sometimes risking everything means gaining everything. Simone understood that now. And she'd spend the rest of her life grateful for the night Christopher Bennett found her collapsed in his driveway and chose to help rather than look away. 5 years later, on a sunny spring morning, Simone stood in the kitchen making breakfast. Emily and Ethan, now 6 years old, sat at the table arguing over who got the last waffle. A toddler, 3-year-old Daniel, banged his spoon on his high chair and giggled. "Ethan, let your sister have it," Simone said. "I'll make more." "But I wanted it," Ethan protested. "Share," Emily said smugly, taking half the waffle and putting it on Ethan's plate. "Like Mama taught us." Christopher walked in, dressed for work, and kissed Simone's cheek. "Morning, beautiful." "Morning." Simone smiled at him. She wore scrubs, her nursing school graduation having led to a job at the local children's hospital. She loved her work, helping kids who came from difficult situations like she once had. "Daddy, can we go to the park after school?" Emily asked. "If your mom says it's okay." "I'll be home by 4, Simone said. "We can go then." Life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Christopher's business continued to grow, but he'd learned to delegate, to prioritize family time. They had dinner together every night. They took vacations to the beach. They had movie nights and game nights and ordinary nights that were special because they were together. Emily and Ethan didn't remember the Caldwells or the night in the snowstorm. To them, Christopher and Simone had always been mom and dad. They went to good schools, had friends, played soccer. They were happy, healthy, loved. Daniel was their surprise baby, born 2 years after the wedding. He had Simone's smile and Christopher's eyes, and he completed their family in a way they hadn't known they needed. Simone's life had transformed in ways that still amazed her. She had a career she loved. She had a husband who supported her dreams. She had 3 beautiful children. She owned half of Christopher's house, their house, the place where she'd first found safety. Teresa still worked there, now as their friend more than employee. Helen had retired but visited often. Thomas Richardson remained their lawyer and family friend. Patricia Coleman sent Christmas cards every year, always commenting on how well the kids were doing. Sometimes, on quiet nights, Simone would think back to that desperate woman in the snowstorm. She'd think about how scared she'd been, how hopeless, how certain she'd never have anything good in her life. She'd been wrong. So completely wrong. The doorbell rang. Christopher answered it to find a young woman standing there, soaking wet from rain, holding a crying baby. "Please," the woman said. "I need help. My boyfriend, he hurt me. I had to run. I don't have anywhere to go." Christopher looked back at Simone. She nodded. Of course she nodded. "Come in," Christopher said. "You're safe now." The woman stepped inside, crying with relief. Simone wrapped her in a towel and took the baby, who immediately quieted in her arms. "What's your name?" Simone asked gently. "Angela. Angela Torres." "Angela, I'm Simone. This is my husband, Christopher. We're going to help you. Both of you. I promise." Angela looked at them with the same desperate hope Simone remembered feeling years ago. "Why would you help me? You don't know me." Simone met Christopher's eyes and smiled. Then she looked back at Angela. "Someone helped me once when I needed it most. Now it's our turn to help you. That's how kindness works. You accept it, you heal, and then you pass it on." Christopher nodded. "You and your baby can stay here as long as you need. We'll help you figure everything out." "Really?" Angela's voice broke. "Really? You're safe now. Both of you." Emily and Ethan peeked around the corner, curious. Simone gestured them over. "Kids, this is Angela and her baby. They're going to be staying with us for a while. Can you say hello?" "Hi," Emily said. "Do you want to see our toys? Babies like toys." Angela laughed through her tears. "That's very kind. Thank you. As Christopher led Angela upstairs to a guest room, as her children scattered to gather toys for the baby, Simone stood in her beautiful home and felt profound gratitude. This was what mattered. This was what wealth and comfort were for, helping people who needed it, creating safety, offering hope. She'd learned that lesson in a snowstorm. She'd learned it from a man who chose kindness over convenience. And now she'd spend the rest of her life teaching it to her children and anyone else who walked through their door. The snow had been the worst night of her life. But it led to the best life she could imagine. And now she got to be the person who helped someone else find their way out of the storm. That was the real happy ending. Not just finding love and safety for herself, but becoming the kind of person who could offer it to others. Simone looked at her wedding ring, at her children's laughter echoing through the house, at Christopher coming back downstairs with that soft smile that was just for her. She was home. She was loved. She was exactly where she was meant to be. And tomorrow, she'd wake up and do it all again, grateful for every ordinary, extraordinary moment. The end.